Hey everybody, Whitney LeBrie here, and this week I wanted to update you on some new things going on with the channel, and I wanted to update you and review the 15-room dollhouse. Now the big update is that I am starting a new Patreon channel. I know I've mentioned it in a few recent videos, and so I thought I'd take the time to kind of go over all the details of that. Now, many have asked over the last couple years if I was going to do a Patreon at some point, but I just really didn't feel comfortable about doing that until I hit over 10,000 subscribers. So I'm the type of person that if somebody is paying me for content, I definitely do not want to disappoint. But also knowing that making more content is going to pull me away from other things, I really needed to make sure that I was going to be able to do it for you, for me, for my friends, for my family. You can understand. And now that I'm over 10,000 subscribers, which is your fault, by the way, and thank you so much for that. It really means a lot. I do now, though, feel more comfortable in moving forward with having a Patreon. So here's what you can get for becoming a member. I'm going to have two different levels. I'm going to have a 3 and a 5. So in the $3 membership, here's what you're gonna get. You're gonna get a welcome package from me and Tiny Whitney. You'll get behind the scenes content, work in progress updates, thank you shout outs, and special projects. And what do special projects mean? Well, believe it or not, I actually do other things besides miniatures. Of course, it will include miniatures, but it also could include baking, painting, and other types of fun crafts. Maybe this isn't a good example of one though. For the $5 membership, you're gonna get everything that I just went over, plus, some of you already know this, but some of you don't, I do actually have an eBay store where I sell miniatures. So you'll be getting eBay discounts or coupons. I also do haul shows, and you'll be getting some sneak peeks of those hauls before anyone else. You'll also be getting behind the scenes video bloopers and outtakes. It's mostly Tiny Whitney because, well, she makes a lot more mistakes than I do. Now for one of my first special projects, I'm going to be building this McKinley dollhouse right here, but I'm going to be dubbing it the Decades dollhouse. Each room is going to be represented by a different decade, so I think that's going to be super fun. Please also know that if $3 and $5 is a struggle for you, your support by just watching my shows, commenting on my shows, and giving the channel a thumbs up is absolute gold, and thank you for those things. So thank you so much to those of you who want to become members. The page is now live, and you can just head on over to the Patreon website and look me up under Whitney LeBrie Miniatures, or you can head down to the description box and find the link there. Okay, and with that, it is now time to review the 15-room dollhouse. Now, I just finished the Willy Wonka room, and so what happens is when I start a room and by the time I finish it, I wind up having more subscribers. And so I think it's always a good idea in between each room to touch base on the dollhouse and really talk about the big picture, because I don't think everybody knows exactly what I'm doing. So sometimes I don't know exactly what I'm doing, to be fair. But anyway, so here is the dollhouse. You can see how huge it is when I stand next to it. I'm about 5'2", and so obviously the dollhouse is quite larger than or taller than I am. Now the big picture here of the dollhouse is that every single room that I'm creating for this is either movie or TV themed. And I keep kind of going back and forth on what those movies and TV themes will be. However, I do get a lot of good suggestions from you, and you're more than welcome to comment today and let me know what kind of rooms you'd like to see. As with most creators, I do tend to go with the things that I love as far as movies and TV are concerned, because those are the things that I'm more passionate about. And when I have more passion for a project, I feel like the projects turn out better. Typically, when I do a review, I like to go in the order that the rooms were completed, but today I'm just going to do it really random. I will, however, point out any additions and accessories or anything like that that I've added to the rooms since they were completed. Let's get started. So first up is the Indiana Jones office. So I based this office after Indiana's 1936 home office. I did try to include as much as I could from the actual office, but then I also included several other items from each of the movies, including the different artifacts that he was in hunt of. Here we have his suitcase with his whip, of course. Some additions I just added based on a guy who likes to travel, right? So a lot of maps, different things like that. Since completing the room, I have added this little brown satchel that I found, and I also have, that's a cane that's laying there in the chair but has a dog head on it. I just thought it was really cool and it felt appropriate for the space. Over here on this shelf, you can see that I've got the golden winged creatures, which are cherubim for the top of the ark. And then a new addition is a beautiful little piece of pottery with a tiny little frog on it. And that is an artisan piece. And then pretty much everything else is the same as when I did it, except I did find this small crystal skull. And of course, I needed to add that. That's the only addition that I have from the other movies beyond the first 3. But I have considered either making or trying to find a small scale version of the Dial of Destiny, but I haven't put much thought into it. And then what is the most fun about this room, and I haven't done this in the other rooms, is that it has a hidden secret adventure room. So if you open the fireplace, behind there is a secret passage, and of course it has spiders and moss and other creepy crawlies. And then once you get through there, you are in the adventure room. Now, the adventure room can also be seen from the very top of the room bot. Here it is looking down over the top wall. And again, like I said, I only concentrated on the first 3 movies for the adventure room. The other thing that I did was I designed the room to slide out so that if I needed to get to that back adventure room, I could just slide it out. And you can see here what that looks like. And actually, that gives us the ability to really look at this really well, because there is a window on the side, but it's so reflective with the camera that you can't really see inside. So you can see I have the Petra building in the background to represent Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. We have the snake altar over here to represent Temple of Doom. And of course, the very, very front image is Indy, and I do have that Indiana Jones doll. Well, I call it a doll, but I know it's actually called an action figure. But of course, that doll is from the very first movie, Indiana Jones and the Lost Ark. And I just depicted, of course, the famous scene of him removing the fertility god with a bag of sand, and we all know how that went down. I created a baby's room also, and I really wanted it to be as magical as possible. And one of the most magical movies for me, especially growing up, was Wizard of Oz. And this was the first time also that I made furniture pieces represent different characters. So I do have a Tin Man dresser, a scarecrow baby changing table, and then a cowardly lion armoire for this space. And I loved making those pieces so much. You can see here these 4 characters up here. Those are Hallmark ornaments. Then I created a table here to represent the witch. The chair that went with it is the flying monkey. I did add that tiny little tiger down at the base of the table. The top here just has some really cute Wizard of Oz type of tchotchkes, including an hourglass with some red sand. I thought that was, of course, very fitting. And then for Dorothy's character, I painted the baby's crib to look just like her. With a gingham mattress and everything. Then I painted the little feet of the crib in red and added sparkly ruby glitter to represent her ruby red shoes. For the background of this room, there was already a wall installed, and so I just removed that and made it look like the outside of Dorothy's house. And then behind that, I created what I called the nanny's quarters, and then just decorated in a style that represented a farmhouse to make it nice and cozy for the nanny. Now, the other new additions that I added were these 3 little cute characters right up here, and I just sat them on the roof of the nanny's quarters. And I just thought they were so adorable. I actually bought these little guys down in Torrance at the Dollhouse shop down there in Torrance, California. There was no artist signature, so if you know who these might have been made by, I'd love to know, actually. One of the next rooms that I designed was the dining room, and I based it off of one of my favorite television shows, What We Do in the Shadows, which is actually also a movie just as hysterical. This room has one of the funnier elements that I've included in a room, starting with a rhinoceros bottom hanging on the wall. That isn't from the movie or show, but I felt like it would be something that you would definitely find in their house. Of course, we have a biscotti dinner here. This is actually a nod to the movie. They don't do that in the show, but in the movie, they do feed human people biscotti from a can when they visit. I also have Colin's 2-drawer filing cabinet. On the top of the file cabinet, I included Laszlo's witch's hat. I really enjoyed making that. It was really funny. And then I did grab several of the photos that we see in the beginning of the movie, in the beginning of the show, in the opening credits, and included them on the walls. This was also the first time I ever made a doll before from scratch, and I did make Naja's doll that she carries in several of the seasons. And then I do have a Nandor coffin also that I made and put a little Nandor inside peeking out. His coffin doesn't fold down like that, but I don't know, I thought it was pretty funny. I also made a non-reflective mirror because vampires, of course, can't see the reflection. So I did have to create that. And I did extend the fireplace as well during the process of creating this room to have a much taller fireplace in the room. Now, the only new addition since this room has been completed really has been the bats that I hung on the ceiling because we definitely need bats. Of course, now let's talk about the Willy Wonka room really quickly. This is the most recent room, so it's the most fresh in everyone's mind. Obviously, I haven't added anything new to the room since the video because the video just came out a couple weeks ago. But just to review, each piece in the room is, of course, based on one of the children that Willy Wonka takes through his factory. The bed is based on the Wonkatania, or in this room we call it the Bedatania. Added other accents, of course, you can see the chandelier there. That is based on the elevator, the glass elevator. The door is based on the contract room and the gold hand hooks that the kids place their coats and hats on. Of course, when I added the contract to the front door, it made the room change quite a bit. And I told one person already who commented, I felt like I went from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory to 50 Shades of Purple, adding a contract that you have to sign to come in. But that's okay. And then, of course, for me, the whole room was a success. The only thing to me that was a fail is Willy Wonka's face because it's just too feminine. And I know a lot of people were saying paint the eyes blue. Gene Wilder had blue eyes. Yes, I know. I totally agree with you. I'm just worried about attempting to paint the face because I'm not very good at that. So I keep thinking that I might just get a new doll at some point. I loved the Oompa Loompa though. I felt like the Oompa Loompa turned out really great, and everything else I felt really good about. It was just the doll face. The good thing is at least the clothes, when you look at the doll, you go, oh, okay, yeah, that's supposed to be Willy Wonka. But other than that, I really loved the way the room turned out. Definitely magical and plenty going on for sure. Next up, we have the garage, which I actually placed in the attic, but it didn't really much matter because the car that was going to be parked there can fly, because I did recreate the garage from Back to the Future. For this room, I chose to do more of a replica of the movie, and so I try to keep it as close to what we were seeing in Doc's garage as we could. Based on the room, some of the things had to change. I put the ping pong table with the miniature version of the city to the side of the DeLorean instead of behind it. So little changes like that were made. The DeLorean, which I made from foam, I really love the way the DeLorean turned out, but this would be one thing that at some point I would like to recreate, having more knowledge of different products now than I did then. I would still make it out of the foam. That was a great way to go. It was super light and easy to do, but I would have done a foam putty on the top and sanded it down to give it more of a smooth feel rather than just painting straight over the foam, because you can certainly see that it's foam. I think that would just make such a world of difference. So even talking about it now makes me just want to go and recreate it right now. I think my two most fun things that I created in here was the Marlin from polymer clay, and I loved the miniature city on top of the ping pong table. I think those were my two most favorite things to create. Everything else in the room, I just really tried to stick to what we were seeing in the movie, including recreating the garage door, the bucket that goes up in flames, and then I did add this real working television that included the tiny clip that we saw Doc playing on the television when Marty comes into the garage. I haven't added any new additions to this room, but I do have my eye out on a new tire because the one that I have hanging on the wall needs to be replaced. In addition to the nursery, I also added a children's room, and the children's room that I added was from the movie Poltergeist. I loved everything about making this room. My most fun part, though, was creating all of the toys that were over in Robbie's section of the room. It was so fun trying to recreate this space with all of the posters, the Star Wars toys, the Toys R Us sleeping bag, all of the books that were on the shelf, and of course, recreating the clown. Now, this room took a couple turns during the process of it. I was not going to add the area where the closet was, but then I felt like it was such an important part of the room that I went ahead and added that to the front of the room, and it does light up. Changes and additions to the room. The biggest change to the room is the tree. The tree that's there is not the original one that I did in the video when I first created the space. I had a much larger, more brown tree. Kind of, to me, I called it the big turd in the room, if you recall. And it just didn't have the creepiness and the coloring. It just was off. So I did replace it, the tree, and the tree that you're seeing here is the new tree. The other things that have been added were really nothing to do with the room. It's just I had acquired some different toys that I thought would be good in the room. One of those is this little rocking chair to the front of the space. And then I also had a fire truck and a farmer's truck added. And those were just some Miniverse toys that I recently acquired. There is a fire truck shown in the actual movie that's getting pulled into the closet. So I thought that seemed a good fit in the space. But everything else is the same. One of my favorite rooms that I've created. I think I actually say that with all of them. Okay, everybody, so that's it for today. I'm beginning to start on the new Goonies room, Goonies attic room. Have some really fun stuff in store for you there. Also, FYI, if you are new to the channel and this is the first video that you're seeing, or you just started hanging out with me during the Willy Wonka room, I want you to know that there are videos on all of the rooms that you've just seen. So if you're interested in how they were created and want more details, you can go to my playlist and all of these rooms will be there for you to check out. Thank you so much for doing that. I really do appreciate it. Well, it's been a super fun ride. So far, we have 6 rooms now completed, 9 more rooms to go. So that's a lot of fun coming your way. Also, it's good to know that even though I'm working on these rooms, I have other projects and different things that I do in the mix of doing these rooms. So if Goonies is not your thing, I will have plenty of other projects and activities that you may be more interested in. If you haven't already subscribed, obviously you need to do that because you don't want to miss any more content. I have plenty of new projects coming your way. And of course, I always love to hear from you. If you've been following me since the very beginning, which I know some of you have, go ahead and put that in the comments and let me know. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you next time. Bye.